Great. Well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone, depending where you are. Thank you so much for joining. Great to have all the interest in this topic. Definitely very relevant for the times we're in. I'm Adam Hertel, Naturally San Diego board member and our program committee chair that puts on these webinars. I just want to do a little quick overview of Naturally San Diego and the Naturally chapters for those of you who might not be familiar, might not be members yet. So Naturally San Diego, we're a nonprofit group supporting the natural products industry within the San Diego community by providing impactful networking, education, and resources to our membership. We exist to serve our brand community in the various aspects of the CPG industry. And for this webinar specifically, we're also partnering with our friends, our sister chapter, Naturally NorCal, and providing this content with greater reach to the Naturally network nationally, of which there are another 10 or so chapters around the country that some of you might all be members of. Many of you, however, are not yet Naturally members of your respective chapters, so I have to do a quick obligatory plug here for Naturally Network and all of our chapters. We encourage you to please join us to receive more content like this, both virtually and also in person. So if you go to your local chapter website, or in the case of San Diego, naturallysandiego.org, you can find out more information on membership as well as sponsorship at that location. So I want to introduce also a new person to the Naturally San Diego team, a critical new hire that we've had for about a month now. Renee Solaris is our new executive director that we're thrilled to have on board. Welcome, Renee. For those of you who have not met Renee, hopefully you can if you're local at an upcoming in-person event, something live. We've got a lot of other content coming up. If you check the website I just mentioned to see our programming for the fall, we're starting to do more now on the calendar as we get through the summer break. So yeah, thrilled to welcome Renee on board, and we'll be doing a lot more stuff coming into the back part of the year. All right, so with that, we're in for a great content-packed hour, super relevant topic, great panelists, and I want to introduce our moderator, Stacy Saltar. Quick bio on Stacy. Stacy's a seasoned marketing leader who ran her own marketing agency for 15 years. She served as the chief marketing officer at Rubio's Restaurants, my favorite fish taco spot, the Classic in San Diego, for those of you who know. And she also held senior marketing roles at Taco Bell and the Clorox Company. She now works as a fractional CMO, partnering with emerging companies to scale their brand, accelerate growth, and build authentic customer connections. So with all those pleasantries out of the way, I will kick it over to Stacy to get started. Thanks so much for being here, everyone.
Okay, great. Thanks, Adam. And welcome everyone to our Naturally San Diego webinar, Influencers on a Budget, Social Strategies for Emerging CPG Brands. Today's session is all about how emerging brands can grow a passionate social following and run meaningful influencer campaigns, even without big budgets. We're joined today by three amazing guests who've successfully navigated this journey and will be sharing their experiences and insights with you. So let me introduce them. First, we have Noah Simon Waddell. He's the co-founder and chief visionary officer at The Coconut Cult, a brand he created while searching for a natural way to heal his own gut health. From fermenting coconut yogurt in his mom's kitchen to creating a nationwide brand, Noah drives the company's marketing and creative strategy, building standout brand collaborations and influencer partnerships, which he'll be talking about. Next, we have Neelu Sharyari, is the founder of Ono Protein Overnight Oats, the high-protein oatmeal brand making breakfast anything but boring. After helping bring Halo Top to over 10 international markets, she grew Ono from her kitchen to the shelves at Target and Costco, using scrappy social content, storytelling, and community building to grow a loyal fan base and drive sales. And then we have Ashley LaBrune, who is the Associate Director of Social Influencer at Power Digital, where she helps CPG brands grow through creative, data-driven storytelling and influencer strategies. She has successfully scaled omnichannel campaigns that build brand awareness, drive engagement, and deliver measurable results for both emerging and established brands. So thank you all for being here. We appreciate your participation and sharing all your great insights with everyone on. So quick note, for all the attendees, if you have any questions for our panelists, just enter them into the Q&A box, and we will try to get to them either during the discussion or at the end. We'll try to get to as many as we can. Okay, so we're going to kick off our discussion, and Noah, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about how your brand first started gaining traction on social. Was there anything special, a moment or event that really kicked things off for you?
I think it was exploding yogurts. think like early on, as I was experimenting with trying to figure out how to make, larger batches of a yogurt, I was like accidentally fermenting too much and yogurts were exploding all over the ceiling, all over the floor, all over all of my clothes. And the photos were funny. So I was just going to upload photos of me, holding a jar of yogurt that just exploded. I think that was like the first thing that I did that worked really well.
Okay, awesome.
I'm from the era of, before video. So like there was a major paradigm shift when TikTok came and it became that video content was a requirement. So I first had success sort of just doing photos. And that was for the first couple of years we did well going viral or creating a community with photography. But then there was that shift when TikTok really emerged as like, pushing video content as a way to communicate with a customer that we had to pivot to figuring out how to make it work with videos.
Okay, awesome. And any thoughts you want to share about videos and what's worked well for you? Because your videos are amazing and most people I'm sure have seen them.
Um, well, I can really only, I mean, I think there's probably a lot of different ways to create good video content. I can really only speak for like what I found works for me, which is for me, I found like I found like doing my own, like doing your own thing. Like I found that if I do something that's unique and not something that other people are doing, like instead of trying to do a viral trend, I found like if I just try to put my energy into doing something that is totally unique to me, that there's like it's just a higher potential for success. Like when I look at like not brands, but when I look at content creators, lots of people do like viral trends and stuff like that. But the people that really have like staying power are like the people that have like nailed a certain unique style of their own or a certain unique thing. So I try to just have a unique factor. And I found also that just people connect with a talking head if you can get comfortable enough on camera that you're sort of like the authentic you is coming across and you're not stuttering and you're not, you know, saying a lot of ums and you knows and stuff. You can practice it enough that you're like pretty concise that I feel like you just people want to relate to that. So my advice is like you find a unique niche that's like unique about you that you have an offering that's someone would find valuable or interesting other than a different human. And if you can practice enough talking into the camera, there's a win there because I think people, especially in this day and age, want to be able to relate to who they're buying product from. They want to be able to feel a connection and they want to feel like a humanness from a brand.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, great. Neela, what about you? How did your brand first start sort of gaining traction on social and what was your approach?
Yeah, so our social media growth has been truly as organic as it gets. I think it's very common to be a founder-led brand on social media these days, but like back in 2020, showing the behind the scenes was still a relatively bespoke approach. I essentially became like Ono's first influencer, and kind of to tap onto what Noah was saying here is the content for us that worked so well was just like the storytelling content, and everyone kind of knew like what I was working on today, what was happening tomorrow, so they were tuned in. And I wouldn't say that this necessarily caused us to have like viral growth, but it was definitely the reason we had such an engaged follower group. And we were doing like things like up until a year ago, we were personally messaging every like new follower with a quick intro and thank you. And obviously, in the long term, things like that aren't scalable. What when you're starting out, and for me, it was more important to have like 500 people who were so bought into us and our story than like 50,000 people who were silent followers. And then as you do things like that, of course, like as long as you continue, it starts to snowball and traction builds. And we added other ways to amplify our reach and gain new followers that we'll kind of tap into next, like our influencer outreach and co-branded giveaways. But essentially for us, it truly was an organic approach.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, Ashley, from an agency perspective, what are some of the low budget or organic strategies that small brands can use to get started? What do you recommend?
Yeah. And I'd say on the brand side of things, that when you're first starting out, really aligning on what those content pillars are. So is it informing? Is it entertaining? Is it educating? And then what Nilu and Noah mentioned is really staying consistent and continuously showing up. Really just making sure you're adding value with each post to your followers, and you'll start to see some growth over time. If you do want to dip your toes into influencer and have very limited budget, I think gifting is really a no-brainer. Sending product to influencers with no strings attached, personalizing it can really go a long way. So writing handwritten notes and really making them feel special and trying to stand out from other brands who might also be having gifting strategies. Ambassador partnerships is another opportunity. So if you don't quite have the budget for flat fees to pay each creator for content, you could integrate a more affiliate-based partnership where each creator gets a commission % for each referral purchase. This also incentivizes the creators to continue promoting the brand so they can continue driving some revenue on their end. So really is a win-win, easy kind of introduction into influencer. And also UGC partnerships are huge right now. There's tons of UGC creators out there really trying to build portfolios where you could partner on a product trade basis with no budget needed, sending them some of your product, have them send you some fantastic attention-grabbing content that you can share on social, potentially tag them if they're also an influencer, with really minimal investment there. So.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so that's a great segue into influencers and how to find them, how to approach them, how to get them to post content for you. So Noah, coming back to you, sort of how did you initially find and reach out to creators? I mean, you guys have so many people talking about the coconut cult and you've done so many collaborations. Tell us a little bit about how that got started and how that's evolved.
Sure. I think and this is like a little abstract, but I think like how you think about yourself in terms of how you is like really determines how you show up. And I think that determines how other people see you and how they react and engage with you. Um, so like I know that I've traditionally seen a lot of brands view themselves as a brand separate from a person or a personality with value or bringing something. So I just think from the beginning, I've always just, instead of approaching an influencer, like being like, hey, I want something from you, I think I've always approached and every influencer. And I also lived in Los Angeles at the near or Santa Barbara, basically near the start of the business. So I was like sort of, in the network with a lot of influencers that I was sort of able to just make friends with instead of like trying to create a working relationship. So I just was like, I would just want to make friends with as many of these people as I can and not like I'm going to then ask them to do anything. But I just thought if I was their friend, they would just naturally want to do something if they liked my product or they thought it was cool. And I think that was my angle. It was just like I'm just going to try to make friends and I'm not going to show up as a brand. I'm going to show up as something different, as like a brand that has a strong enough personality, or I was going to embody a strong enough energy um, that I would be treated maybe like on a more even playing field than like someone who was trying to pay somebody to do something that I needed done.
Yeah. And did you, so I think that's great. And I think that makes a lot of sense, is having those authentic relationships and friendships where they're promoting your product because they're friends and they like what you're doing. Did you sort of formally, sort of like gift the product? Did you send it to them?
Yeah, I would make, like special runs, like pretty early on. I'm like, it's going to do well. People get excited when you make a special limited edition, unique thing that's got, some added artistic flair to it or something, that's just the culture of CPG in a lot of ways.
Yep.
So I was like, I'm going to make special little limited things. There's value in that, because when you share that, when you create that, people will want to share that because it's like an added, they get a win from like, look at this cool thing I have, or look at this thing that like I've gotten that like is not easy to get. So um, I created that, and then I found that that really increased the frequency with which our product was shared. When I would make little limited special batches, I'd make special
And you
batches.
send them samples of those
Yeah,
limited batches.
or I wouldn't send them samples. I would make a launch. I would be like, hey, I've made a
Okay.
couple thousand so and so flavor, and I'm just gonna send it to all my new friends who have good followings and get them excited, and then influencers would probably rather post about something that's limited and cool and special than something that's just anyone could get by going to the store.
Okay, that's great. Okay, Nilu, what about you? How did you, sort of originally find influencers or creators that you want to work with, and how has that sort of changed over time?
Yeah, so truthfully, I'm chronically online myself. I follow and engage on social media every day. So finding influencers organically became a part of my routine. But especially with TikTok now, the truth is like any creator has the potential of going viral. So when I'm trying to find creators to partner with, for me, the key is finding ones who are good at storytelling or showing their lifestyle, showing other products like seamlessly as a part of their routine. I wasn't like, I didn't have like a certain criteria. Like I wasn't going after for people who had X amount of followers because I think we all know at this point, like followers doesn't automatically mean they have influence. So, like, AKA getting people to engage with whatever brand they're talking about or buying the product nonetheless. And then, two, just logistically, people who have a lot of followers are just harder to get a hold of, and are probably more likely to only do paid collaborations. So for me overall, it was just like more so finding people who I would come across that were good at the storytelling piece. And then a tactical way for like people who are starting out and maybe aren't as involved in the online space as maybe I am, is I would look at other brands who do social media really well, especially influencers really well, and look at the hashtags that are involved with partnering those brands. So, for example, I'm sure we're all aware of Bloom, like they do a fantastic influence, they have a fantastic influencer network. And normally the videos associated with them are like hashtag Bloom partner, or like Tarte is another one, like hashtag Tarte partner. And I would look at the videos under those hashtags and see, okay, who are the influencers that they're working with? Are there synergies across those? And normally they would be. So they would kind of become on my radar now of like people I could reach out to as well.
Okay, awesome. That's a great tip. Ashley, we've gotten some questions in the Q&A that I think are great for you to answer. So there's questions around like, what are the platforms to find influencers for gift collabs or UGC? Is it worth paying a creator marketplace platform like Grin, Social Cat, etc., to source influencers? And here's another one. Do you recommend using Yuka or another platform to help identify or find creators on TikTok? So those are all sort of related to sort of platforms and what's worth it, what's not worth it. So thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. I'd say platforms for finding gifting collabs. Coley's a great one. Tribe, Join Brands. Those are all very common for influencers, looking for those gifted collaborations. I think you could also search manually on platforms. So search UGC creator, search hashtag gifted, and you can also organically find a lot of these creators without maybe having to pay for some of these platforms. I know the platforms do really help streamline things where you can add briefs and all of the management is done within that versus a little bit more manual. But if you are interested in dipping your toes into that UGC, you could definitely search a little bit more organically on socials. For creator marketplace platforms, I think if you have the budget to do so, platforms like Grin, Sprout Social, Creator IQ, these are all fantastic, not only for sourcing creators, but also for data analytics, looking into consumer insights, looking at competitive analysis. There's a lot of other tools outside of just the sourcing. But if I know sometimes those can come with a hefty price tag. So another opportunity is just doing manual research. I found that these platforms are really great for a starting point to start filtering through and finding creators, but really where we find unique influencers to represent your brand is that manual vetting. So searching different locations if your business is local to one region, looking into hashtags or keywords. As we know, TikTok has kind of become an SEO engine at this point, so it is really easy to find influencers that have a very specific niche just based off of keywords. Instagram also has a really great lookalike feature. So if you find a couple of influencers that you think would represent your brand great, you can instantly find other influencers that are very similar to them. So a lot of really great manual steps you can take. And then if you do find, or if you don't have access to a creator marketplace platform to see past, health of these influencer campaigns, you can ask. It's kind of an industry norm too to say, hey, could you send a couple, case studies from past partnerships that you've done? I'd love to see your link clicks or story views, or if they're hiding their likes, they're able to provide some of those to you so you can really analyze them before maybe considering a paid partnership. So that's for creator marketplace platforms. For recommending Yuka, I think Yuka can definitely be impactful, specifically on TikTok and the TikTok shop side of things. It really helps you streamline communications and perform outreach to a larger number of influencers than doing it manually. So definitely a tool you should have in your toolbox if you're activating on TikTok or TikTok shops.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's helpful. Okay, let's get back to sort of creators. And Noah, I'm thinking, I know you talked a little bit about building relationships and friendships, and that's your approach in terms of, sort of pitching, or not even pitching, but just managing those relationships with creators or influencers. Any other sort of approach that you've taken? And particularly, I'm thinking about some of the collabs that you've done, because you've done some really cool and unique collabs. And maybe you can tell us a little bit about how those have, how you approach those and how those happen.
Sure. I think it's all about storytelling and networking. And collabs are both of those things. It's telling an interesting story, and it's networking with other people that have an audience or fan base. So, I mean, that's my advice to anybody starting a food brand is like, it's so crazy competitive. It's so competitive. I did it accidentally and I lucked out, I think. But, I'm seeing so many people and I talk to so many people at different stages of food startup. It's so competitive that you really need to become a good storyteller, like not in every aspect. In terms of, if you're raising money, you need to be a good storyteller. If you're trying to market, you need to be a good storyteller. If you're creating relationships and talking to influencers, you need to be a good storyteller. It's like really one of the very most important skills, and it needs to probably be able to do it on video. So it's not a natural thing for a lot of people. I mean, the younger you are in it generationally, probably the more practice you have at it. But it doesn't matter what age you are, or if you're in your 50s or whatever. I think anybody can learn to visually storytell. And you can take your unique quirks and interesting things as part of your personality and figure out how to weave that in and have it come through in your storytelling. And that's how you stand out, because there's hundreds of thousands of other CPG products and brands, and almost all of them are doing a lot of the things that everyone is doing, but most of them have not nailed storytelling. And like, that's where you should put in a lot of time and effort and energy. In terms of collabs, that's something also anyone can do. But I think you have to have a brand that gets people excited. I think, like, if I hadn't first got a lot of influencers on board and excited and like repping the brand, it would have been an entirely different journey to creating lots of collabs. I think because I've got uh, the level of, I guess, interest or excitement around the product, it's not hard for me to go out and be like, hey, other cool brand, or hey, cool influencer or celebrity, like we should do a flavor together. This would be fun. But I think if we weren't as well known as we were, not that we're well known, it would be a much harder challenge, and it would be a much like larger financial toll on the business to even get there. And I wouldn't recommend that to someone. It's not something that's really like worth, throwing a lot of money and time and resources at, like, because it works exponentially well in terms of like how viral you already are. So I would really focus my energy on like storytelling, because that's the thing that will allow you to become viral. And that's the most important thing. Once you have that, there's a lot of different opportunities of things that you can do, and other brands, other people you could collaborate with. I will say personally, I almost always collaborate with someone that I have some type of personal relationship with first. It's really easier to figure out and navigate a collab where you have to align on so many different things with someone that you can talk directly to the person, versus dealing with someone, there's a large team that's sort of advocating and protecting and, stonewalling different aspects of the teamwork and the compromises that need to be made when two people's ideas have to get mashed into one. So, work with your friends, and get good at storytelling, because that's how you'll win a lot more people and get a lot more people interested to do any type of marketing with you. And
Yeah,
stick at
and I
it.
think that
It's not easy.
that
It's like it takes a lot of trial of like trying to get good, especially with video storytelling. And it's there's times where I like doubted myself, but I'm like, I'm going to figure it out. And then, you know, it's not like it's something you're born with. It's a thing that you have to learn.
Yeah. And I think that that makes a lot of sense, right? That you built up a loyal following, a lot of sort of recognition and awareness, and that made the collabs sort of easier because you had already established that. We've got some questions that I think are related to storytelling that maybe you can answer. So from Jeff, in a marketplace of noise with everyone and everything being an ad, how do you think about brand storytelling with your influencers instead of just pushing product? And then another
Don't be
question
an ad.
related is,
Like, just because you don't want to be an ad. There's a
right,
lot of like sort of automatic subconscious like response that happens if someone feels like they're being approached with an advertisement versus being approached with something funny or something of value or something educational or something cool to look at or something. So I just always prioritize, like, in terms of content or marketing. I think, at least for me, the day and age for like a small to moderate sized business just thinking about ads as their main tool for marketing is gone. Like, maybe like a massive companies, ads work. But for anyone here in this room, including me, and including where I'm going to be in the next couple of years as well, I think focusing on ads is the wrong thing to focus on. You want to come with value. You want to come with entertainment. You want to come with human connection. Like, and don't worry about pushing your product. Like, if you're able to get someone to want to connect with you or watch you or follow you or engage with you, then they're going to just be naturally more interested in what your product is, and they're going to then look into it, and it's going to have much more influence on them, because people are smart enough and they've evolved enough with advertising to know when someone's trying to sell them something or someone is just providing value, and they're like two different energies.
yeah, yeah. Okay, Neela, what are your thoughts in terms of messaging and approaching influencers and creators and sort of getting them to work with you? What approach have you taken? Similar to
Yeah,
Noah's or different?
I would say similar to Noah's. I think maybe where Noah and I are very similar is in the relationship building part. However, I didn't naturally like have like a network of influencers to build relationships with right off the bat. So for me, it was more so once we found them, okay, how do we build a relationship with them and not go about it as a pitch. Again, like I think what Noah said about not sending your product out as an ad, and like the goal isn't to really get the influencer to just talk about your product. It's to get them to um, get it to be a part of their routine so that they're naturally just like bought into your brand and showing it organically. And like, so for example, the way I approach relationship building and pitching the creators, like say I'm reaching out to someone for the first time, I kind of have like a 3-part formula in my message. And the first part I think is the most important, is just acknowledging the creator's content itself. So maybe you're referencing a recent post that they did, but like the influencer's selling something too, and it's themselves. You know, like they're selling their brand, and if you don't show that you're interested in their brand, like what do they owe you to be interested in your brand? So kind of like building that initial acknowledge point, and then like the last 2 parts are very short and sweet, like just something about our brand. And then we do most of our influencer tactics are just product seeding. So we don't really work in a paid setting, especially right off the bat. So without any strings attached, I say something like, would love to share some with you to try, kind of leaving it open-ended for collaboration there. And then I think another thing to remember about pitching is, especially like the bigger influencers, they're getting so many messages. So if they're not responding after a few days, I kind of just like assume my message got lost in the mix, not necessarily they saw it and they chose to ignore it. Maybe that's a little naive, but no, it always works in terms of like I follow up, and like then the majority of the messages are seen. And then to piggyback off of that, I think timing is also very important to keep in mind in terms of pitching to influencers. So like obviously they're real people going through real life issues. And that's why it's like it's also important to keep up with their content and engage and know what's like going on in their day to day. But I think that's also an opportunity for you to show up in a meaningful way in their life as well. So like for example, and this was an influencer that we had worked with in the past, or had sent product to in the past, but she recently had a baby. So the follow-up box that we sent to her had a custom baby blanket with her name and with the baby's name, and just like continuing and nurturing those relationships, showing up in their lives, being like, you know, we're as if we're a part of it as a friend to friend rather than brand to influencer. So yeah, I think things like that like make your pitch not a pitch and actually just building a relationship with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are great points. One thing I see almost no one do that, Neela, you touched upon is like, if you're a brand, comment and like and engage with
Yes.
influencers' posts like on a regular basis, because
Yes.
most brands don't even do that. You stand out.
Agreed.
Yeah, those are great comments. Thank you both. Okay, Ashley, any thoughts from your perspective in terms of what you've seen work with brands trying to get influencers to work with them, what's worked and what hasn't worked?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think really the goal here is breaking through the noise of their inbox and standing out from all of the other brands. And this really ladders back to what we talked about in the previous question of making sure we have the right influencers. So influencers are looking for brands that they can relate to, that aligns with their lifestyle. So they want to make sure that their audience, it like feels authentic for them to be promoting your brand. We've seen a lot of times influencers will turn down partnerships, even really high-paying partnerships, just because they don't think it would resonate with their audiences or it would come across as a little fake. So always wanting to make sure that these creators definitely could be a brand representative. Obviously, brand recognition is huge, but to piggyback off of what Noah said, if you're a new and emerging brand and your brand recognition isn't quite national or wherever the end goal is to be, engage with the creators organically, even just spending an hour a day going through following, liking, responding to stories. Then they'll say, oh, I've seen this name brand before. And then when they see them in the inbox, they're more inclined to engage with it because they've grown that brand visibility there. And then anytime you can pull out any impactful stories that the influencer may resonate with and really customize that outreach. So say, you know, someone's child is now transitioning to a gluten-free diet and you have gluten-free products. You could say, hey, I know you're on this journey and I know it's really difficult. I'd love to send you some of our gluten-free products to give them a taste to see how it goes. So really is that personal note, and then ultimately just making sure it makes sense in the long run. And to what Nilu said too, follow-ups. It's okay to follow up 2 to 3 times. Definitely don't take no response as a no. Obviously, influencers are busy. Their inboxes and DMs are crazy. So maybe try DMing if you don't get an answer. You could try emailing and just kind of keep going until you get a response.
Awesome. Thank you. Noah and Nilu, we got a question around how do you decide or manage what to share between, I guess, really the different platforms and options that you have, you know, stories and posts and reels and, you know, everything that you could be doing on social. How do you decide sort of what and when to do different things? How do you manage all that content?
Oh.
Either one of you.
Is this, I assume it's in terms of just like personal brand content, right? Not influencer content?
I think personal brand, yeah.
Yeah. So for us, our channel strategy between like story is for us, like I see it as more so just like the random stuff day to day that I'm working on, and or resharing other posts that people have tagged us in. I love using the engagement features on stories. So like if I have a quick question and I want to do a poll on like, I don't know, thinking about a potential new flavor, that's how I'll approach stories. For our Instagram feed, I would say that's our most like curated channel. So like actually has like a stronger content strategy that um, Ashley touched on before, but you know, in terms of education, entertainment, like that's kind of how we think through that. And then on TikTok, we do tap into kind of more viral trends on TikTok and use that approach. And honestly, our TikTok channel and our Instagram channel, like we don't see a lot of overlap between audiences yet. So we do also just like repost what we've seen work on like another channel to the other, like to the next channel if it did well. That's kind of how I think through the
Okay, thanks. Noah, how do you manage that?
Honestly, the same. I just make a video and I post it on TikTok and Instagram like 2 minutes apart.
Yeah.
I do.
Okay.
You know, because it's a lot of, you're balancing, like as a founder, you're balancing making content, editing the video, engaging with people on social media with, you know, all of everything else that goes into it. So the more condensed you can make it, there's a win there. But TikTok is like for hitting home runs. So there's a different style. It's a different game for sure. So don't like do it not understanding the game that you're playing,
Right.
because oftentimes I'll make a video and it's a video designed for TikTok and I'm posting it on Instagram. That's what I do a lot of the time. And doesn't mean it doesn't do well on Instagram, but like if you want it to do good on TikTok, you want to know what you're doing. You don't know right away, but like that's the difference between, you know, getting 1,000 views or 500,000 views. It's like knowing what you're doing with the how you're designing your video. And Instagram, I just yeah, I just do like I like to make a lot of flavor launches. So I'll just like do a cool flavor and then put a photo of that up, and But TikTok is like, if I was a young brand, I would be focusing 90% of my energy and mental, like, I'm going to figure out how to do this on TikTok, because that's where you can like leapfrog up to like different levels of business growth. Like Instagram, we grew like step by step, but when we've like blown up on TikTok, which is maybe twice, the business has like doubled and tripled in size within months each time, which is something that I don't think you could do on Instagram, even if Kim Kardashian was posting about you. She would have to be posting about you every single day to like replicate the type of growth that you can get all on your own by figuring out how to do TikTok for free.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's great. All right, let's shift a little bit into spending. So I guess first off, do you invest money into your social media strategy? Have you gotten to the point where you're doing that? And if so, sort of where are you investing? Kind of what's worth it and what's not worth it? Nilu, you want to start?
Sure. So for us on social media, product seeding has been our biggest investment lever. So I had mentioned before, like we don't go into working with influencers right off the bat in a paid setting. Honestly, purely for budget constraints and to build the relationship more organically. But if we've seen an influencer through that journey post about us and we either loved the piece of content that they posted or saw a lot of traction from it, and we want to see it get more reach, then we would discuss a potential paid collaboration with them to do more of like a whitelist approach on their post, and kind of boost it through Meta that way so it reaches more people. But that's kind of been our biggest investment.
Noah, how about you?
We don't have a content budget or anything. It's just propping the phone up on a few books, like hitting record and having conversations in the DMs with different people.
Yeah, and sending product, right? So the
Sending
same
product,
thing.
like that's free, but it's not free. But yeah, the more product you can send, the better.
Yeah.
Don't think about it. Don't be stingy with like product. Just send it, and even people are like have not large followings. Like don't look at follower count, or like you're looking at engagement. Like you want to know, do people engage with this person online? Even if they have 2,000 followers, are people engaging with them? And they're still more valuable than someone with 50,000 followers and gets 2 comments on a post.
Yeah. Nilu, you had also mentioned sort of brand collabs and giveaways that you've done. So maybe talk a little bit about those, how you've created those, and whether you think those have worked and been of value.
Yeah, they've definitely been of value. I will say, like, that's a easy way to kind of get a quick, nice
More
little
followers.
follower boost. Yeah. But that doesn't necessarily always mean they're going to be your, next best customer or, as engaged as some of your followers that you attained more organically. However, I think that's why having a strategy when you're going through your co-branded giveaways is so important. So we try to align with brands that we assume have similar audiences to ours. And these days, I think everyone's doing the co-branded giveaway. So having something that's a little bit more exciting or maybe more intentional, rather than just like the like, comment, follow approach to giveaways. But yeah, it's something we continue to use. It does still work on our behalf. So I recommend it.
Okay. Okay, great. Let's see, Ashley, just, in terms of spending, so if brands have, very little to no budgets, sort of what do you recommend as where they should spend their sort of time and energy?
Yeah. And I know we've talked about gifting, giveaways, affiliate programming, UGC partnerships. I'm really happy that micro influencers have been talked about and how, not looking at follower count as a vanity metric, but really prioritizing smaller creators with higher engagement. That's definitely a benefit of going in with a lower budget is micro creators tend to have highly engaged audiences where maybe their 200 likes out of 1,000 followers is way more impactful than 200 likes from someone with 1 million followers. So identifying more micro creators with smaller budgets. Also, you always negotiate. So when you're starting to go into paid partnerships, influencers will send you their rates. It's an industry norm to negotiate as firm as you can. So it could be taking down deliverables, but really trying to meet them in the middle of where it makes sense for your budget and then a rate that they feel happy accepting. Other strategies just with the content itself to make your dollars go further would be collaborative posts on Instagram where it's showing in both your feed and the influencer's feed, because this will allow the content to reach the brand's feed, the brand's audience, as well as the influencer's audience. So really doubling down on that reach. Repost is actually a new thing that Meta launched just last week, where you can really, it's similar to what TikTok is doing, but brands can repost the influencer content or just any creators that are sharing your brand. So it'll just show like, hey, creators are talking about us. And then kind of a non-traditional way that comes up every now and then is considering an equity play. Obviously, this depends on like every brand's financials. This could potentially help you land larger creators. Alex Earl and Poppy is a really great example of this. But if there's an influencer who's really bought in on your brand and your product long term, there are some brands who are really testing this out to have that really long-term partner who is just posting about your brand again and again, almost like a business partner. So lots of different varieties there.
Very awesome. I want to just talk for a minute about sort of measuring results and what you look at and how you evaluate your social media efforts. So Noah, what numbers, if any, do you look at to evaluate whether or not your social strategy is working?
TikTok views. TikTok is all about views. Instagram, there's different things to look at, but I mean, it's nice to get a lot of likes. It's always still nice, but most importantly, obviously for the algorithm, are shares and saves. So, like, the more you can have a post or a reel shared and saved, the more people are going to see it. So, not always easy to do to create a content that people are like from a brand that people are going to share. But if you can do that, that's a win. But engagement is always most important. So comments are great. I always like to see a lot of comments and shares and just views are good, but views on TikTok are like where it's at.
Okay, great. Nilu, how about you? What do you look at?
Honestly, the same exact things that Noah just said. Yeah.
Okay.
The biggest metric, I mean, we prioritize social media as a lever just to expand reach and like deepen relationships. So for reach, obviously, hand in hand goes with views, especially on TikTok. I think the reason why I agreed with Noah when he said like if I were a new brand today and like why I would also prioritize TikTok is every time you post a video, TikTok is sending it to the majority of people aren't people who are following you. I mean, I would say 99% of the people are just like random people who are browsing their For You page. And that's why it's just like such an incredible channel to find new people and reach new people. And if you have a video that does initially like hook someone in, like I'm sure everyone's heard this, but time and time again, like having that 2-second hook right in the beginning is so important. If you have that people want to like continue and watch your video fully, your video will get from like 300 views to sometimes now, it's like in the millions right off the bat there's no formula to it. You don't really know why, but it's like that doesn't happen on Instagram. So yeah, views the most important, and then engagement just for deepening our relationships. So comments, shares, replies on stories.
Yeah, great. Ashley, anything you would add to that you guys report on?
Yeah, I would say if you have access to the Sprout Socials, Creator IQs of the world, those are fantastic for automatically harvesting all metrics. Obviously, if you don't have access to do so, you can request analytics from creators if they were paid creators once the campaign concludes, and enter them in a spreadsheet or a resource or whatever it is to really manage and track some of that campaign metrics. If you want to look at more of like intent to purchase or link clicks, you can create custom UTM links for influencers to use in their stories, in which you can measure, website visitors and conversions in Google Analytics, free resource. Also look at coupon codes. So, like Ashley 10 for 10% off of your order, then go into your backend Shopify or whatever you're using and see how many times those codes were used.
Awesome. And we did get a question about, is there a good AI platform for social? Anybody using an AI platform for social?
We don't.
We don't, I mean, I'll type into ChatGPT sometimes, like hook ideas or make this sound a little bit more, intriguing. But other than that, no.
Yeah.
Ashley, anything you guys use?
I agree. It could be a good thought starter for content ideas, but ultimately, I know we keep coming back to this like authenticity and humanizing the brand. And that's just something that AI and like robots kind of can't really take from us. And that's what's so special about social. So I think using those like internal brainstorms and creative ideations versus leaning too heavily on AI.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so last question last questions for you guys. So and Noah, you already mentioned this, but if you were starting over today, what would you do differently? You mentioned spending most of your time on TikTok. And just specifically, is there any advice that you might have to other founders that are trying to really build their social following and presence?
Yeah, sure. I would spend a lot of time on TikTok, not just filming videos, editing videos, posting videos, but also consuming everybody else's videos. Like I think if you want to like you exist within the TikTok world. So like whoever is watching your video is also watching all the other videos that you're watching. So if you want to learn how to get good at it, like watch the other videos religiously over and over again that are like doing a good job at getting a lot of views. And I would focus on trying to nail in a specific style of like making video content that stands out, because I think even much more so than I've even done, I feel like if I had the time and energy, or I was at the stage of business where I really needed to create a big audience, is I would just really think of myself as like, okay, I need to become a TikTok creator. Like, I don't want to just be a brand that does TikTok. I want to think like I want to be a TikTok creator that has a brand, and whatever that means. But like, think about making content in that way, because if you can get so good that you become a really good creator, your brand will get in front of so many more people than anybody else's brand, and like you'll have a built-in enormous audience base for trial, for people sharing. You'll have lots of other brands that will like want to collaborate with you, and sort of be interested in you, versus you having to hunt down and be scrappy for everything. So it's not easy, and just because you try really hard and spend a lot of hours doesn't mean you do it, but it does take all of that to get there. And that's like, if that's what I would put most of my time and energy into if I was at the very early stages of starting a food business.
That's awesome. Thank you. Neely, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think growing a social media account still involves so much trial and error. So I would really just kind of look at it as a numbers game of seeing how many levers we can have running at once and see what works. But to Noah's point, especially in terms of content, and this is how we approach content too, is I try to almost like emulate being an influencer on TikTok, and like put myself into, okay, if I wanted an influencer to talk about the brand, or like if I was following an influencer and they were sharing about a brand, how would I want that to come across? Like that's how I think about the content, instead of like thinking through only talking about product. And then so maybe some ways that, or things that I would do differently these days, especially in terms of influencers too. Like there's so many new ways that you can partner with them. I mean, Noah's creating limited edition flavors with influencers, and Ashley touched on giving away some portions of equity in lieu to avoid the hefty costs. I think just like getting creative in all of these aspects that like maybe were not as common before. Like it's these are such great resources that we have at our fingertips now. It's almost like letting opportunities slip away if like you don't tap into them. So yeah.
Great, thank you. Ashley, what advice do you have for emerging brands?
Yeah, I would just say, top of funnel strategies like influencer, social media, they're equally as important as bottom of funnel revenue driving channels. So we need to bring in new customers into your marketing funnel that will later convert. So we know that attribution can be hard to track, but obviously just staying super consistent. People need to see a brand or a product like 3 to 4 times before considering to purchase. So keeping that in mind, knowing that the ROI isn't always like instant gratification, like wanting to see results the next day, but just being patient and staying the course, and you'll definitely see success over time. But more of a long-term play, but equally as important as any of your paid channels.
Awesome. Okay, well, that brings us to the end of the hour, and just wanted to thank again our panelists, Noah, Nilu, and Ashley. Thanks so much for joining us today. Such great insights and valuable advice for the brand. So thankful for your time. Thanks for being here. You can connect with them on LinkedIn, and of course follow them on Instagram and TikTok so that you can see all the amazing things that they are doing with their brands. So thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank
A pleasure.
you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.